Hi there, Simon from simonwoods.com. 4 ports in front of me, 3 from Noval or Quinta de Noval, and 1 a solitary interloper from Graham's. I've got 2 Tawny styles, 2 Ruby styles, and I'm doing the Tawny styles first because I suppose I generally think of them as being lighter and less robust. So if I've got them the wrong way round, well, tough. First one, it's the Noval 10-year-old Tawny, and give it a whirl. Gentle raisin with a touch of orange peel and citrus peel and Christmas cake spices. Yes, it feels like someone's taken the flavours out of a Christmas cake and squeezed them into a glass. It's maybe not as heavy on the sticky, heavy sweetness as Christmas cake is, and probably not as heavy on the brandy as some people's Christmas cake is. But smells like it's going to be a soft, gentle, friendly type of wine. And that's just what it is. I mean, 10-year-old with a 10-year-old wine Tawny, and the idea is it's not 10 years old. It's been 2012 now. It's not a 2002 vintage, but it's been blended, so it tastes like a 10-year-old wine should. So there'll be a bit of younger stuff in there and some older stuff as well. But with a 10-year-old Tawny, you can still taste a little bit of the spirity kick about it. The aging in barrel will have knocked the freshness off the fruit, so you're left with this nutty walnut, a bit of almond in there too, and these raisins, figs, dried citrus peel, and then there's this slightly. There's a nuttiness that's I think of as all like nutty oak furniture polish. Does that make sense? It does to me. You can still feel that kick of the spirit. I'm a 20-year-old. It's more mellow. I'd like a 17-year-old. I have to be careful about the context in which I say such things. But a 17-year-old Tawny would just about be à point for me. But that's a pretty good start to the tasting. Let's try the next one, which actually is, it's a 15-year-old Tawny. You have to be careful on this one. And it really is 15 years old. This is what they call a Colheita. So it's Quinta de Noval Colheita 1997. And whereas the first one was a blend of vintages, blended, so it tasted like a 10-year-old wine. All of this is from the 1997 vintage, and has spent the time since then mellowing and getting tawnier and tawnier in colour in a barrel. Let's see how it's turned out. Oh, it's funny, I noticed the spirit more here. Oops, I'll just dig a bit of cork out of there. And it smells like it's going to have that same sort of treacly, raisiny roundness that was in the first one. Maybe a little more throaty. Yeah, it feels like a bit more of an edgy wine. Let's taste it. Well, it's strange. I mean, it's a 15-year-old as opposed to something that's supposed to taste like a 10-year-old. But this actually tastes younger. The fruit seems fresher. It's still got a little bit of the ripe red cherries, and they're just going into that dried cherry, that glacé cherry type of spectrum. Yes, still some berries in there, not gone as figgy as the one before, and I can still feel that slight powerful horse-like spirity kick of the brandy. I mean, I prefer it. I think it's a more interesting wine, but I also find it interesting that at this stage it tastes younger than a 10-year-old should. I also find it rather nice, so I'm not going to pour that away. Let's do a sea change to 2 late bottled vintages. Now, one of them says on, unfiltered, and the other one doesn't say anything about whether it's traditional or unfiltered or anything, so I'm presuming it's filtered. What is the difference? Well, the idea of late bottled vintage is with a regular vintage port, it's bottled usually about 2 to 2.5 years following the harvest. Well, it's still young and vigorous and very deep in purple in colour, and it takes ages and ages to mature. I mean, although some people like it pretty young, and it is rather delicious when it's first released with a pepper steak. I digress. But vintage port often it requires 20 years, 30 years, sometimes 40 years to get to what some consider its peak. And who has the time, inclination, space, and money to age wines for that long? A few people, but not enough. So the idea of late bottle vintage is it's a wine that stays in a cask for a bit longer, and mellowing in the process, and instead of doing all that long slow aging in bottle, it does slightly faster aging in barrel, and is then bottled maybe 4 to 6 years after vintage. So first one I've got here is Graham's late bottled vintage, and sometimes it says on when it was bottled. This one I can't see anything on the bottle that says when it was bottled. Sometimes it says it, sometimes it doesn't, but anyway, just dig in. Whereas the first two were mellow fruit, this is feisty fruit. This is feisty berries, cherries, a deep dark damson type of freshness about it. There's something like sloes as well in there, and this violet edge that I get in young ports that hopefully stays with it throughout its life, but here it's quite strong. Doesn't smell like it's going to be extremely classy, but I like its intensity of and immediate impact. Well, it's a bold young beast, as I suspected, not massively complex, but it's got a spirity kick, it's got bags and bags of fruit, it's got this slightly violet pepper character coming through, and a darn satisfying glass of wine. Yeah, I mean, the thing about late bottled vintage and all ruby styles is try and get through them as quickly as possible. Something like this, though, you can probably hang on to for a couple of weeks, but a nip of that on a cold winter's evening and you'll soon get through a bottle. It shouldn't take you more than a fortnight. But I like that the way in which the fruit lingers on. This spicy, this pepper violet edge to this bold berry fruit. Yeah, fair enough wine. Let's try the Noval, Quinta de Noval, 2005, and as I say, this says unfiltered. So whereas the first one, if you were to keep hold of that bottle, it really wouldn't do all that much changing over time. It would do a bit, but this one is built to... it will change, and will it change for the better? That's when you get into your personal preferences. There are some houses, there's one called Smith Woodhouse, where they do, I had a bottle of their 1984 a couple of months ago, and it was still going strong. That would have been bottled in like 1988 or 1989, but yeah, still look good. Does it say on here when this was bottled? No, the dates on here are fine ports since 1715, 2005, and I can't see anything else about bottling date. Anyway, let's just dig into it and see where we get to. Well, it smells more savoury and mellow. It's a couple of years older, so it's done a bit more softening, but it also feels like there's an extra layer of gravitas to the fruit. So the fruit's not just sort of like a young pick me type of boisterous, ripe young fruit as there was in the Grahams. Here, yeah, there's a little bit more, there's a little bit more grey matter, and it feels like it's going to have an earthier, deeper core of flavour, and yeah, more layers. Yeah, it's a deeper, darker, more profound wine. There's extra layers of flavours. I think there's probably extra layers of price as well. But there's this. You feel the spirity core, but then wrapped around it are things like kirsch. And do they still do Bristol cream chocolates? There's something of like that kick of spirit with a chocolatey surround. Earthiness, violets, and it's strange. The fruit feels more fresher and juicier. It feels a bit sweeter as well than the Grahams, and I don't know whether I'm being seduced by that, but it is quite a seductive style, and you get onto whether should I keep this. I think this tastes pretty good now. I think it will age rather nicely as well. I wouldn't say the same about the Grahams. I think this would happily hang around for 10 years really, but as it is at the moment, it looks pretty nice, and so I may force myself to. Well, it's been opened. I've got to do something with it. I can't throw it away, can I? I'm probably going to have to finish it, but not all in one go. Hey, see you soon.